Okay folks, for this project we're using two contrasting colours of yarn. So I've got quite a nice royal blue, electric blue here, and an orange red here, which I think work quite well together. This is a reclaimed yarn taken from an old jumper and some recycled cotton yarn here. I'm working in the round using a 4.5mm hook, and here I've got a button for the finished bag. So to start with, I'm working with twin yarns, combining the blue and the orange red. And starting off forming a slip knot. And chaining 80 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll carry on until I get to 80 chains. So we're coming out to the end of our chain of 80. 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80. Right, so we're working in the round to form the main body of the bag. So simply connect back to the first stitch, just here with a slip stitch. And then putting a single crochet into the next stitch, and that single crochet, American terms, double crochet, English terminology. And then we're going to put another single crochet into the following stitch, and continue to put single crochets into each and every chain all the way around. Okay, I'm just finishing up the first round. What you'll find is that it can curl a little bit, but this will straighten out as you progress. So that will sort itself out. So I'm just going to finish going into the remaining chains with the single crochet. It can be a little bit tricky finding the right place to insert your hook in the chains because of the double yarn. But what you'll find is once you get onto the remaining rounds, that becomes much easier. Just take your time with this first round, You can see I've marked the first stitch that I did with the first round here, so that helps with knowing that I'm getting to 80 stitches to complete the round. So it's worthwhile at this stage just checking that you've got 80 stitches in the round, a quick count, and then once you've finished that round, simply continue with a single crochet into each and every stitch. So round 2 and all the following rounds, it's simply a single crochet into each and every stitch. So you're spiraling up and repeating row after row, just single crochets in each and every stitch. Keep spiraling round and round until you get to the desired height of your bag. In this case, I'm going for a bag which is around 20 centimeters in height, and then the base of this bag, I'll show you how to sew that up, and I'll also show you how to make the flap, the front flap of the bag, the buttonhole and the strap. So I'll continue round, putting a single crochet into each and every stitch, and as I say, keep going round until you reach the desired height of your bag. So I'll just carry on and work up the body of this bag to around 20 centimeters in height. As you can see, now that we're on to the second round, it's a little bit easier to do your single crochets and insert the hook into the stitch. You can afford to stitch quite tightly as this will form a nice dense fabric for your bag. I've worked up around 37-38 rounds now, spiraled up from the start, and that comes to about 20 centimeters or so in height. You finish up with quite a nice speckled effect of your different colors that you choose, and I'm now going to show you how to form the flap in front of the bag. If you fold your piece of work flat and then mark either side approximately where your work is folded, so in that corner there where you folded it flat, and then in the other corner on the other side again mark a stitch where the fold is. And then take some more stitch markers, and depending on how wide you want your strap to be, you can adjust the number of stitches in this case, but for the purposes of this bag, I'm going to go for a strap of 5 stitches wide. So if I take this marker here first, I just count 1, 2 stitches to the left and mark that stitch there, and 1, 2 stitches to the right and mark that stitch there. That's going to be where the strap will be on that side, and I'll show you later how to do that. And so we do the same on this side here. So 1, 2 stitches 1, 2 stitches to the left of that marker, and 1, 2 stitches to the right, so we have, I can take this one out, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches here, and take the center one out, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches here for the strap. So the strap is marked, the position of the strap is marked now, and I'll just show you how to form the flap of the bag. So if I start by just stitching right up to where we've marked, almost lost my stitch there. So just carry on with single crochets here. Right up until the last stitch before the marker. And then just do a turning chain. So chain 1, turn the work, and we'll go back in to the first stitch. There we go. Mark the beginning of the row, just so you know where you started. And then we just continue doing single crochets across, returning back along the row. Okay, we're coming to the end of the row, and a single crochet into that stitch there before the stitch marker. And we're going to do the same again, so we'll do a turning chain, turn the work, and single crochet into the same stitch. And I'll just mark that one so we know the beginning of the row. And then I'll just continue single crochets back along the row of the flap. And I'll just continue doing this back and forth along this row. So I'll just finish going back and forth to finish this section. And before we get to the end of making the flap, I'll just show you how to form the buttonhole. I've continued to work on the front flap of the bag, and when it's folded over, it comes to about the middle of the front of the bag. So I'm now going to work on the buttonhole. This button here, I'm estimating that the slot for the button should be about 4 stitches wide. So if I take this as the center point here, and then I make sure that I mark 4 stitches to skip. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches here. So if I single crochet into the last stitch before the marker, and then do 4 chains, keep them quite loose, and then do a normal single crochet into the stitch after that marker there. And carry on doing single crochets as normal. And you can see here, that's where the chains are. So carry on and finish that row. And then do a turning chain and work back along the top of the flap. Single crochets again. I'll take these stitch markers out. We've got one more single crochet here, and then we're going to work into the chain, over the top of the chain, and then single crochets after that. So we'll do a single crochet here into the last stitch here, and then 4 single crochets into the top of this chain that we've just formed. and then back into the stitch on the other side of the chain. And then just continue as normal, finishing the row. Turning chain and then turning your work and going back along the row again as before. Continue for about 3 or 4 rows to form the bottom edge of the front flap of the bag. I'm just finishing off the last few stitches here. And then just tie off and cut your yarn. You can see here there's the buttonhole and 4 rows of single crochet beneath that, and that makes for quite a nice snug fit for the button. Just sew in the loose end here, and then to seal up the bottom of the bag, turn inside out and then, according to your preference, either sew up the bottom I like to join with a crochet stitch, so just put my hook through both sides of the fabric. You can see that's where I started the bag initially, so just using a single piece of yarn, pulling up a loop, and tying that to secure it. To the other tails. Trimming those off. And then inserting the hook into the loops on both sides and hiding the tails as I go. Obviously you want a good join here so that the contents of the bag doesn't fall out. Just going to redo that. Probably go into right under the stitch there to get a better, more secure join. So actually going under both loops and under the stitch. To get a nice join. Once the stitches have been formed, you're starting to get a fairly clean edge. I have to say this isn't the most precise bit of stitching ever, but it's adequate for this. As you can see, it can be a bit of a struggle to find the right place to put the hook. But the main thing is just to get a secure join so that your bag is nice and strong. Also, I find I have to be mindful to make sure that I keep the fabric that remains, keep an eye on that so that you don't get a sort of a bag that is wonky or out of alignment. And so that the fold of the other side of the bag falls in the correct position. So just keep an eye on that, making sure that that fold remains where it is. As you can see, the stitching is a little bit on the tight side, but that does make for a more solid fabric. You want to make sure that you have a yarn that is sufficiently strong as well to form a decent join that's not going to fall apart. There. So that's pretty much as it should be. So again, just cut and tie off your yarn, and that can be sewn in, and then you'll see that when you turn your bag inside out, you have a nice straight edge at the bottom. So to finish off, we're just adding the strap and the trim. So the strap will be single crochets from one side to the other, and then the trim will be a crab stitch around the front of the flap. So That will be just in a single colour of yarn. I'm opting to use the blue just as the trim colour. I'm going to make a start on the strap of the bag. So looking at the stitch markers from before, we've got 5 stitches here for the width of the strap. So if we go into the first marked stitch, pull up a loop and secure the yarn. Just tie that off here to secure it. And then work a single chain and mark that. And put a single crochet into the next 4 stitches. That makes the strap 5 stitches wide, hiding the tail as you go. At the beginning of making the strap, I find it useful to mark the beginning and the end of the row with a stitch marker, but after a while you'll probably find that you can manage without. And where the last stitch marker is, in the 5th stitch as well. So we've hidden that tail there so we can trim that off. So we have now 5 stitches secured to the bag, and I'm just using a single colour here. So work a turning chain, turn the work, and head on into that same stitch with a single crochet. And continue along back along the row. And then into that last stitch there. And then I'll just continue, keep marking the stitches if you need to know where you started and finished, but you'll gradually get used to that. So we're going back in again with a single crochet all the way along the row. Into that last stitch. And then again a turning chain, turn the work back along the row. So we're going back and forth, and just keep repeating row after row until you achieve the length of the strap that you would like. Making sure that you always keep a stitch count of 5 along the row. So I'll carry on with this for a while, and once I've finished the strap, I'll show you how to connect that back to the other side of the bag, and also show you how to do the trim around the bag, the finishing trim, and that'll be in crab stitch. I've finished the strap of the bag and I'm now going to secure it into position on the other side of the bag. So I'll just take this stitch marker out where we marked the handle position. And then just pull the loop of the strap through. And then go into that same stitch with a single crochet, and then work along, going under both loops of the bag and both loops of the second stitch of the strap of the bag. And then finally that last marked stitch and into the last stitch of the end of the strap. Now the strap's been attached, I'm going to work on doing the trim around the front flap of the bag. To start off with, I'll do a simple foundation crochet stitch around the edge. So single crochets all around the outside first, and then over the top of that, the next row will be a crab stitch. So a foundation row of single crochet, and then the next row will be a row of crab stitch. So single crochet between each row of the front flap. So that's going into that gap there with a single crochet, and that gap there. Having this foundation row of single crochet makes it easier to then do a row of crab stitch, and makes for a nice neat finish. Right, we're coming up to the corner of the flap, so we'll just put a couple more stitches in to the corner just to round that corner off into the same gap. And then we'll continue along the bottom edge of the flap. Into each and every stitch. Once we've gone around the whole of the front flap, we'll actually go back along the row with a crab stitch because that actually goes backwards. We're just finishing up the single crochets around the flap, and we've arrived at the other side of the strap now. So we'll go into that stitch next to the strap and the first stitch of the strap as well, so that it really butts up against that. And now we're just going to go backwards doing crab stitch. So we're going back into the stitch before, pulling up a loop and pull through into the stitch before, pulling up a loop and pulling through, so a single crochet in reverse into the stitch before, pulling up a loop, pull through into the stitch before, pulling up a loop and pull through. So I'll just carry on doing crab stitch back along the row that we've just done. Having done a foundation row of single crochets, that makes this process of putting in these crab stitches a little bit easier. I finished the border to the front flap and sewn on a button to finish the bag.